Mirëmbrëma dhe mirë se vini në Real Story. Një vit më parë në Tiranë, në presidencë, dorëzoi kredencialet e saj, cilat sigurisht u pranuan ambasadorja e Shteteve të Bashkuara në Shqipëri, zonja Yuri Kim. Ka qenë një vit i rëndësishëm, viti 2020, një vit i rëndësishëm për Shqipërinë, padyshim, por dhe një vit i rëndësishëm për vetë Shtetet e Bashkuara. Dhe në këtë një vjetor, unë kam kënaqësinë ta kem ambasadoren amerikane në Tiranë, zonjën Yuri Kim, të ftuar sërish në Real Story këtë radhë në studio. Zonja Kim, mirëmbrëma, faleminderit që jeni sonte me mua. Thanks for being here with me tonight.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you again.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, off and on the camera. But a year in Tirana, exactly today, what that year meant to you personally?
I think it's been the honor of a lifetime to be able to represent the United States of America in the Republic of Albania. And for me personally, it's been a pleasure to be here. And I have to say, despite all the restrictions that were imposed by the coronavirus, I was still able to travel a little bit. And I think the best part for me was just being able to meet normal Albanians wherever I went. Even just kind of walking around the park in Tirana or taking a walk behind the housing areas. It's been wonderful.
Although in this year you had to deal mostly with not normal Albanians, or at least not normal situations in Albania, like you came up in the country when we had this deep political crisis. And actually in January last year something started to change with a kind of agreement between parties, but then we had the June agreement where your role was evident. I remember you shaking that agreement, calling to Mr. Luli Basha to come and sign it. So it has been a successful year for you as a diplomat, I suppose.
I think it's been an eventful year for U.S.-Albania relations. And I think that we are pleased to have been able to play a supporting role. But the credit, if there is any credit, goes to the Albanian people and the leaders. I think in many ways they delivered. The job is not done yet, but I think it's very clear that Albanian leaders made commitments to me, to the United States, to the Albanian people, and they delivered. So for example, in the last year, the Constitutional Court is now functional. It's not perfect yet, but it's functional, which is a major step forward for justice reform. Secondly, the SPOC is now functional. It's not moving as fast as I think people hope, but it's moving, and that's something important. And then thirdly, NBI is also institutionalized. Inspectors have been hired, and so I think that things are going to get moving. But that's not it. As I mentioned to you before, for me in Albania, we have three priorities: democracy, defense, and business. So I talked about the democracy part. On defense, this year, we're going to have something very important happen. And I'm happy to talk to you about this some more. This is the first time I'm mentioning it in public. But we're going to have what's called Defender 21 military exercise. And this is going to be an exercise led by the US Army in Europe. And it's going to involve about 26 different countries, 30,000 troops. There are probably going to be about 6,000 who come through Albania in May and in June. And next week, the deputy commander of the US Army in Europe and Africa is going to be here, and he's going to brief the leaders of this country and the public on what this exercise is. So it's very significant. Thirdly, on business, you remember last year on October 3rd, we signed an historic bilateral memorandum on economic cooperation. And it's not just words. Within the hour, we turned around and Bechtel, which is a major American company in the world, signed a memorandum of understanding with the Albanian government to see what we can do on building the Skavica hydropower plant. So these are really good indicators, and so I'm excited about what we're going to do in 2021.
So America is back.
I wouldn't say America is back. We've always been here.
No, but this is the military exercise from the figures that you just gave out now seems quite a big one. Maybe one of the biggest.
It'll be the biggest military exercise that will occur in the Balkans.
In the Balkans.
Yep.
So what's the message there?
The message is one of...
And why in Albania?
So it's going to involve 26 different countries that are going to send troops. I don't know if all of them will be here, but 6,000 will be here. And what will happen is that the exercise will take place in many different countries. It's not just Albania. The other Balkan countries will also host parts of these exercises. And then it'll go up into the Baltics. And the idea of the exercise is to develop cooperation and interoperability among allies so that we have the ability to go from the Adriatic all the way up to the Black Sea. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, it looks like a big deal and big, how can I say, big wall.
Yes.
Big wall, right?
Yeah.
It's like the new wall towards the Russian influence. That's the way I see it.
Oh, you said wall. I thought you meant big walk, because it will be that.
It'd be big walk and big wall.
I think that the United States through NATO has always been clear about the importance of working closely with our allies and our friends. We're clear about what it means to be part of the transatlantic community.
And this looks to be organized much before than the change of administration in Washington, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So what we should expect with the new administration?
I think that some things will not change. For example, the attention given to the Balkans will not change. I think that every administration has a different character, and I think we will have to see exactly how that plays out under President Biden and now the confirmed Secretary of State, Tony Blinken. But I can tell you this, they are experienced, and I think that they will be very good at promoting America's values and advocating on behalf of America's interests, which also happen to include a strong relationship with Albania.
Actually, we do have a picture of you and President Biden. I don't know if we have it. Then, so this was from the time he was vice president, right?
This is from when he was vice president. And this is in Iraq, where I was briefing him on local political issues. And I swear he was smiling just a minute before and after. So.
Just to make sure.
Yeah.
But something that nobody can put in doubt is your personal, professional relationship to the newly appointed Secretary of State, Mr. Blinken. So you're his chief of staff, right?
Correct.
So.
Yeah.
Tell us something more about it.
Well, I was his chief of staff when he was the Deputy Secretary of State, which was from 2015 to 2017. And he's one of the most intelligent and strategically minded people that I've ever encountered in public service. And I think those of us who know him are looking forward to seeing him back at the State Department. And as a friend, I could not be happier.
As a friend, you could not be happier. As your friend, what should that impact to better your mission in Albania?
I don't think that he's the kind of man who shows favoritism based on personal relationships. He's going to take a look at the world, and I think that you're going to be impressed with the way that he develops relationships with his counterparts. I think we're going to be impressed with the way that the United States makes an extra effort to strengthen all our alliances and our friendships around the world.
Ma'am Ambassador, you have taught us many lessons in history. And America has always, and it will always be our mirror when we see ourselves and when we better ourselves. In that sense, what the lesson we should take for whatever you experienced on on January 6th and after it?
I think the lesson of America's experience over the last few weeks and months is that democracy is not easy. It's not easy for anybody. It's not easy in the United States. It's not easy in Albania or anywhere around the world. That's the first lesson. The second is that it's important and it's valuable and you have to fight for it. And the third is that institutions matter, leadership matters. And so for me, when I look at the United States of America, I'm proud of the fact that we were able to go through this very difficult test. And I think we passed it. I think that there's still work to be done. But I also hope that when other countries around the world, other people around the world look at our example, what they see is not that we may have had a hiccup, but that we recovered and that we're going to be stronger, we're going to learn lessons from this. And that's really, as the ambassador here in Albania, that's what I hope for Albania as well.
Actually, I was about to say the same thing because I accidentally happened to be there in Washington, and what amazed me is how the representatives of the people came together in just like 2 hours or 3 hours, and they delivered that strong message that you actually delivered here as well. That, you know, America, when it comes, there is problems, there are hiccups, but at the right moment, at the right time, at the right place, actually, they came up together again, and it was an emotional appeal that America gave to us who actually looked for hope to America, and maybe in a few seconds we lost that hope, but then everything recovered so fast, so magnificent. It was amazing, the political spectacle that they gave in the aftermath of the events. And my question is why Albanian politicians cannot do that when it comes to difficult moments, when we experience difficult moments in this country. Why they don't do the same thing?
I think that they can.
I know they can, but why they don't do it?
Well, you have to ask them.
You think they can?
I do. I do.
You before told me that when I asked you in the beginning about the 2020 and whatever it was achieved in the agreements between the parties, you said we should give the credit, if there is any, to Albanian politicians. My question is, could they have done it without you?
I don't, think that it's useful to talk about hypotheticals. All I can say is that, we saw a useful role, and we tried to do it as best as we can. And I think ultimately, Albania's leaders did what was right for the country.
Coming back to the same issue here, the elections. Why you are visiting so often the office of Mr. Celibashi, the head of the CEC?
I only visited him once.
But maybe you delivered too many messages.
No, no, I visited him once. Here's the message on the elections that are coming up on April 25th. There are agreements that were made by all parties, and it's important for those agreements to be fully implemented. And I look at, for example, the June 5th agreement, and a major part of that was about implementing electronic identification as a way to reduce fraud in the elections. And so I think it's very important for the CEC and for the Ministry of Interior to implement that fully. My understanding is that it's been slow going to get people to renew their applications, to renew their identification cards. And they shouldn't wait. I put out a message, and I think others did as well. And I have to point out that it's a bipartisan message. This isn't something that just benefits one side or the other. So some people asked, well, you are doing this in favor of the opposition. And I have to say, first of all, I retweeted a story about Minister Chuchi making the point that people should get their IDs. And then as soon as I tweeted that, then the opposition also agreed that it's important for everybody to get these IDs, because that's the way they're going to be able to express their opinion on April 25th. So we've got to get the technical elements correctly, and the CEC has to prioritize what's important and what's basic. And then finally, everyone has to participate. Everyone should participate.
Also, you reacted twice, making also a retweet with a comment on Twitter reminding us, or them, actually them, not us, I mean politicians, about the blacklist of the US Department people. So what's the catch point? What's the connection between that and the election process? If you can clarify something more.
Sure. When I meet regular Albanians, one of the things that they almost all talk about is corruption in politics, in business. They talk about how they want better politicians to represent them. And people are smart. They know what's going on. They know who's who. Now, there are laws that Albania has about decriminalization to prevent convicted persons from being able to sit in parliament. But there are also other individuals that are well known to be unworthy of sitting in the House of the People, legislating laws, right? And that's what I'm trying to point out. So I think party leaders have to take responsibility. And I notice that every time I make one of these statements, everyone likes to pretend that I'm talking to the other side. And I have to say, I want to be very clear, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to Mr. Rama in his capacity as head of the Socialist Party. I'm talking to Mr. Basha as head of the Democratic Party. I'm talking to Ms. Kremade. I'm talking to everybody who is the leader of a political party. It is your responsibility, and I'm talking to you. So no one can be mistaken here that I'm talking about the other side. Here's the other thing. You know what I hear? I think that people in political parties and political leaders in particular have to play fair, and they have to be honest. And one element of this is that when one party excludes someone because that person did not pass vetting in their party, that person should not then get picked up by another party for political advantage. That's not acceptable. And that's the position of the American Embassy, but I also believe that it's the position of the Albanian people. I think they want cleaner politics. I think that they want cleaner courts. I think they want true, honest leadership from the political parties. And I'm with them.
I completely agree with you, and I am with you because I know that you reacted sometimes ago when there were talks that judges that actually didn't pass through vetting were actually getting through to the list of the candidates of the opposition parties. And I know that you reacted at that time. And I also see you and read you when you meet Celibashi and talk about cleaning up the list of the candidates for the next elections. But someone will say, okay, there is this blacklist, right?
Yeah.
Which actually you have different blacklists. There is one, a short one that has come up from the State Department directly, but there is also a long list of hundreds from judges, from politicians, to whom the US has either refused or declined the visas. Should these people from this list be excluded from the possibility of being elected, selected first and then elected to the Albanian parliament?
I think political parties, by virtue of the fact that they are leaders, have to lead, and they have to decide what their party is about, and they have to decide what their voters deserve. Do voters deserve criminals? Do voters deserve people who are known to be engaged in bad activities? That's what they're going to have to decide. They have to present a list of candidates to the people that they, the parties, can be proud of. And they have to present a list that the people of Albania, the country of Albania, can be proud of.
Is this list expected to expand?
I think I can't comment on that.
The blacklist? You cannot comment on that?
I won't comment on that.
Okay. So, okay, as a experienced journalist, actually, that's a comment by silence. But anyway, I leave it there. What is the evaluation of the U.S. When it comes to the preparation process for the next elections? Are we getting there?
I hope so. I think the OSCE and ODIHR specifically, which has expertise in running elections, has arrived, and they're taking a look at preparations. But as I said before, one of the key preparations is getting the biometric IDs in place so that you reduce vote buying and selling. And then secondly, we've got to get in place redundancies in terms of video monitoring and other elements so that people have confidence that what is taking place inside the polling booths is legitimate. And I'll also mention this. I think it would be very useful for the CEC to ensure that cell phones are not allowed in these polling stations. Like I said, I talk to people, I read the news, I watch the TV, and I understand that one of the favorite methods is for people to take a picture of who they voted for and then collect a fee based on that. And since we know that that's a common method, I think that the CEC should take action to prevent that from happening.
But that's going to be a strong decision taken by the CEC.
Yes.
Because it also may create a debate on our liberties. So you're saying that it's better not to have or to stop cell phones in a voting chamber?
I think that they should take all necessary measures to prevent fraud, especially if the method of fraud is known.
Actually, you are right. And based on whatever you see, whatever you experience, whatever you have taken note and message that you're giving in public, do you think that this time there is a better chance that we are going to have free or freer and fairer elections than before?
I think every election is an opportunity to make improvements. And I hope that that will be the case here. I can't predict the future. But what I can say is that on the part of the United States, that we're very serious in offering our full support so that Albania has the technical means, but also the political support to be able to conduct free and fair elections.
Because one of the issues that we have, maybe you know that already, we have in this country is that whoever wins the elections, or whoever comes up as a winner in the elections, the other part immediately does not recognize the result. And now, someone who might lose the elections and will say, you see what happened in America. Even there, the result was not recognized by the other side. So what's the message this time? So should the losing part accept the result, accept whatever comes out from the institutions, whatever comes out from the courts?
Yeah, I think first of all, full participation is important. So no parties should walk away. I think past mistakes should not be repeated. The second thing is that they have to participate in ensuring that the measures taken to ensure free and fair elections are in place. And then thirdly, I think politics is an exciting field, and people fight hard, and I think that's good, actually. But as we saw in the case of the United States, you fight hard, you condemn when illegal actions take place, we draw the line at violence, but of course freedom of expression and assembly are important to respect. And finally, when the process has been exhausted, you accept the results with grace. And so on January 20th, President Biden was sworn in as our president, and I think that's a result that all of us can be proud of.
Okay, we'll have to go into a small commercial break, and we'll talk about the rest. Shkojmë pak në përje publicitare dhe kthehemi ku flasim pak për vitin 2021 që është vit I rëndësishëm për shqiptarët. Rikthehemi pas pak. Rikthehemi në këtë pjesë të dytë të intervistës me ambasadorin e Shteteve të Bashkuara në Shqipëri, zonjën Yuri Kim. Zonja ambasadore, duket sikur keni bërë paqe me Ilir Metën. It seems that you have, parted peace with Ilir Meta lately.
I've always had a good relationship with him. As diplomats, we strive to have a good relationship with all leaders, and I think that all relationships have ups and downs, but it's important to maintain open lines of communication and also to produce results from those relationships. So I'm pleased that we're able to do that.
When it comes to the results that you co-produced with the president and the rest of the institutions about the Constitutional Court, because that's what you call success, right? But many of us see that only as a peace achieved by interested parties to continue having the Constitutional Court under political influence. So what guarantees that this behavior in respect of laws and constitution will be different from the past?
I think that we have to wait and see here. And you may have seen that I've gone to see the members of the Constitutional Court, and I went there with the EU ambassador. Others have also done the same to encourage them to take their role seriously, which I believe that they do. And one of the things that I mentioned to them when I met with them was, when I look at the United States and what we have been through, one of the things that I'm really proud of is the fact that federal judges, when it came to very difficult decisions, made decisions on the basis of their interpretation of the law without regard to who put them in those jobs. And I think that that's something that Albanians also want, and they should have, and they can have. So I think it's really important. This whole notion of certain institutions or certain persons being captured is very harmful. And I think that we are right to have the expectation that judges and prosecutors and institutions will now show that at the end of the day, their interest is that of the Albanian people, not of specific individuals.
Actually, you refer to the case of Amy Coney Barrett, the last member of the Supreme Court of the United States elected by President Trump, and who opposed whatever his lawyers asked on the Supreme Court about the results, which actually showed her credibility and her personality as a judge, who put in front the public interest in front of the political interest of one side. But the election of the last members of our Constitutional Court, as I consulted, people who know the rules, they went again through irregularities. So they were not chosen between three candidates.
Yeah.
There was either one sole candidate or two candidates. And yet, whoever opposed the irregularities before, this time, it was okay for them. President Meta opposed that before, but then he was okay now. The Democrats opposed it before, they were okay now. The social is the same. So my question is it important to have a better constitutional court, or it's enough just to have one?
I think that people should expect a constitutional court that functions with credibility, with independence, and with integrity. This country has been without a constitutional court for almost 3 years. That's ridiculous. And I think that, I hate to be cynical, but sometimes I think the demand for perfection is a way to prevent progress. And I think even the Venice Commission recognized that. So in the opinion that they issued, they made it very clear that this is an urgent problem that needs an urgent solution, and that the responsible institutions needed to work together. And so they did. And you're right, it's not a perfect solution. But I think it's the necessary solution, and it's a workable solution. So now the Constitutional Court has quorum. They have been meeting, and I understand that they have issued their first judgment.
Yes. So what did you think about the judgment?
That's not my business to comment on their judgments.
Well, you know, it was your business by helping to create it. So it's not your business, their results. I think you should take some credit on that as well. But anyway, I'm joking. I had some weeks ago Elisa Spiropali in this show commenting on the changes of the cabinet.
Yeah.
And also it was commented a lot because you actually reacted very swiftly. In every change that it was proclaimed by the Prime Minister, it was like you were giving the okay immediately. So do you have influence on that as well? I mean, have we come to that point that actually, even when we make changes in the cabinet, is the US that actually okays it at the end?
So-called. Albania is a sovereign country. Albania is a sovereign country. So I think people have these notions, these conspiracies, these fantasies that somehow the United States is responsible for everything. And ultimately...
We wish so, actually.
I think ultimately Albania's leaders and Albania's people are responsible for Albania. It's not anybody else's responsibility. On the specific question that you asked, it really is the case, just as I texted to Elisa, that I have fast fingers, you know, that's why I reacted so quickly.
But it was impressive that actually the then Secretary of State congratulated directly the newly appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs of Albania. That was unprecedented, Mrs. Olta Gjajka.
I think that we recognize that she performed very well as Defense Secretary, and she really conducted her business in a way that strengthened the relationship between the United States and Albania. And it's appropriate in those circumstances to express appreciation for that. And of course, as her counterpart, as Foreign Minister, it's appropriate for him, and I think very welcome for him, to congratulate her on her new appointment.
So let's talk about it. Maybe it's the time to talk about this new military exercise that it's going to happen this year. What's the message that America is giving to the Balkans with the new administration? Because you know that from the previous administrations, you know, there were certain moves, there was an agreement that was, I know that you don't want to talk about, you know, countries that you're not involved, but in general. Yeah. So the previous administration was involved in a direct agreement to resolve a very difficult issue, the normalization between Albanians and Serbs concerning Kosovo. So we know Mr. Biden is a strong supporter of Kosovo in actions, not only in words. So what should we expect from the United States when it comes to the role it has in the Balkans, and especially in the relationships with Albanians?
I think that, first of all, I would recommend that you read the transcript of Mr. Blinken's testimony before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee when he had his hearing to become Secretary of State. And in that, he affirmed support for the agreement that was reached between Serbia and Kosovo to expand economic relations. And I think we have every intention now in the Biden administration to build on that. It's a good start, and it's important that we get the Balkans right. I'd also say that Matt Palmer, who is the Deputy Assistant Secretary, has also commented on this, I think about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Now, coming back to the elections in Albania, when we had our first interview in Laura last summer, you know, one of your answers, which was a normal answer to a normal question by me, about how good and refreshing a political rotations is, made actually many people happy from the side of the oppositions, because they took it as a message that the U.S. actually supports a rotation, a political rotation in the country. Do you still stand by that statement?
So let me clarify that. What I meant was, in principle, changes of government, transfers of power in a peaceful way are good. And that is what elections are all about. But elections are also about the choice of voters. And so it's not for me or for anybody outside Albania to comment on when transitions should take place and who should transfer in. That's for the Albanian voters to decide.
Okay, this government actually thinks that is entitled to fight for a third mandate, but that's kind of an icy territory we're sleeping in, because if they win, it's going to be the first time ever that a single party rules the country for a long period of time, which may go to 12 years. And to me, that's a new social experiment that never happened before. You said, of course, and we all know that that's the will of the people. If they decide that a party will have to rule them for the next 4 years, it's up to them, as long as the result is clean and free. But do you see a problem on that?
You answered your own question, Sokol.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking with out loud.
It's for voters to decide. It's not for the American ambassador or any other foreigner to decide.
How do you see the work of this government?
What do you mean?
I mean, how do you see the country? Is the country better? Is the country worse?
I think from the perspective of the United States, we have had good cooperation with this government. We have had good cooperation with previous governments as well. So we are pleased with that, and we hope that, and we are confident actually, that no matter what happens on April 25th, as far as the relationship between Washington and Tirana, that will remain strong.
That I'm quite sure, because I see that even from the other side, from the opposition side, I mean, despite whatever happened in 2019, at the end of the day, they follow suit. They follow suit. They corrected their mistakes, and I think your influence, your positive influence, it's visible on them. And I don't see any element that previously, let's say, jeopardized the relationship between the U.S. and the Democratic Party or the LSI is having an influence today, which is a good thing. What do you expect from the new political movements? Do you think they will have an impact, electorally speaking? Because there are some new parties that are coming out.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a very short answer. The TVs are inundated with different polls. Have you seen them, and what is your opinion?
I see the polls, but you know, polls are not votes. So I think you know, they can serve as a guide for expectations, but ultimately what matters is who shows up on April 25th and who do they pick.
I have become part of the group that sees big coalitions maybe not as the only way, but maybe as the best way to control political egos and lower costs of governing this small country. Voices are growing that there is a possibility that might become reality after April 25, that the socialists and the Democrats, maybe conditioned by the close result on the elections, may consider forming like a big coalition cabinet. Do you see that as a possibility or as a travesty of democracy?
Not for me to comment.
So you're not getting involved in that?
Not for me to comment.
Okay, so when you say it's not to you to comment, it's not you to comment that's a bad thing or a good thing. So that's going to be up to Albanians to decide as well.
I think that it's not helpful for me to speculate on what could happen in the future.
So you're focused on the present?
I'm focused on making sure that the United States provides all possible support so that we get to April 25th in a way that builds confidence and that results in an accurate reflection of what the Albanian people want.
Ma'am Ambassador, let's focus a bit on the justice reform. Here I think you can talk much, openly, because that's I think the biggest investment that the U.S. has had in Albania since 1991, I guess, when you supported the restatement of the democracy in the country. So how the process is going? Because, there are many people lamenting on it. They're saying, they are slow, the institutions have not built yet, the results are not there yet. So, give us some more hopeful messages.
All right. So, as we said at the beginning of this interview, I pointed out the things that have happened over the course of the past year, where we started out the year without a constitutional court that functions. Now Albania has a court that functions. You need a couple more judges to have the full complement of 9. And I think that parties will work on that. The responsible institutions will work on that. SPOC had not yet begun to function. It's now functioning. There are some cases that it's looking at. I don't know what those cases are. That's for them to decide. And then now, of course, with NBI functioning as well with their investigators. So there is movement. I think that the Albanian people are right to feel impatient. They have been without true justice for too long. And they're right to be impatient. They're right to demand faster action. And I think we're going to see some of that coming up in 2021.
So you're saying that you will see some big fishes in the net within this year?
I don't do, those types of public relations stunts. I'm interested in results. So, I don't make big promises. All I can tell you is that the United States is serious about justice reform, that we are serious about corruption. We're serious about building a relationship with Albania that is strong on democracy, defense, and business. And I leave it to you to judge based on facts how much progress has been made or not made. I said this before. I hope that people do not get distracted by propaganda and hyperbole. People should focus on facts.
Okay, based on facts, I can say that the previous ambassador also was very enthusiastic about the same issue, but that dates 2017, 2018, and we are 2021. And I agree with you that, things now with the justice reform have to be done properly, and of course that needs time. And of course 3 years, 5 years, historically speaking, are just 1 second. But in a lifetime of an individual, 5 years or 10 years are very important. And in 5 years we see our kids grow up. and we see ourselves growing old. And then comes the point you say, okay, what is the notion of time when it comes to these things? So when? What is late and what is early, and when is the right time? That's why we have doubts. Even us, I'm one of those persons who have and still supports strongly the justice reform. You know, it has come to that point that we have actually to see the results. That's why I'm putting some pressure on this question to you.
Yeah, I think that you are beginning to see results. You have seen some big cases announced beginning last summer. Mm-hmm. And what ends up happening is, again, you know, making the distinction between propaganda and fact. There are some who want you to believe that Albania has always been corrupt and that it will always be corrupt, and that if you don't agree, that you are naive. Well, I have news for you. That isn't normal, and that isn't the way Albania has always been. I believe in the United States. The reason I believe in the United States is not because we're perfect, but because we strive to do better. I believe in Albania for the same reason. This isn't a perfect place, neither is the United States. But I think the Albanian people have enough fire in them and enough commitment in them to make a change. I look at your history. Albania is the land of Skanderbeg. You resisted the Ottoman Empire when no one else did. Albania is the land of Besa, and today happens to be Holocaust Remembrance Day. But you are the only country in Europe where you ended with more Jews than you began, 10 times as many. Nobody else did that. You are the country that rejected Enver Hoxha and threw him out. I think that these are really admirable elements of Albanian character. So I believe in Albania. I believe in the Albanian people, and I don't think that you should ever give up hope. These people who tell you that nothing is happening and that nothing will ever happen, these are not people who are telling you the truth. They are telling you a lie so that they can continue in whatever terrible activity they're engaged in. Don't lose hope. Hope is a weapon.
It's true. Okay. Shkojmë në përjeshtë shkurtër publicitare dhe rikthehemi minutat e fundit me zonën Kim. Jemi në minutat e fundit me intervistën me Yuri Kim, ambasadorën e Shteteve të Bashkuara në Tiranë, një vjetorin e saj në Shqipëri. Zonja Kim, kam 3 pyetje nga 3 kolegë të mi, cilët do donin t'ju bënin disa pyetje, po unë kam përzgjedhur vetëm 3 prej tyre, nga Lubonja Rakipllari dhe nga Skënder Minxhozi. Zoti Lubonja bën pyetjen: si e shpjegoni faktin që ndryshe nga gjithë vendet e tjera, edhe në Ballkan, ambasadorët amerikanë në Shqipëri janë kaq protagonistë në jetën politike dhe dalin kaq shumë televizor?
You asked me to come on the show. I did not force myself to come on the show.
Yeah, well, that's kind of self, you know, I'm saying that because sometimes Lubonja also criticizes me, but I expect his critics because I know that come from goodwill. Anyway, Roberto Rakipllari asks that why after after a very long, you know, bad political situation when the opposition left the parliament and the US supported the political process for the election reform, and the new rules for free and fair elections, what are the guarantees that we're going to have free and fair elections on April 25 without vote buying or interference of the criminal groups?
I think the guarantee is the vigilance of the Albanian people. You have to hold your leaders to account. And I can say that the United States and other friends of Albania are also very much in support of free and fair elections. So we'll do what we can.
Mr. Minxhozi asked a very different question. He says that should Albania have a more flexible role when it comes to vaccines for COVID-19? like Chinese or Russian vaccines, and what the reaction of the US should be if these vaccines arrive in Tirana, as they did in Belgrade just a few days ago?
I think that there's plenty of information out there about the various vaccines that are offered. Medical care is a very personal decision for everyone to make. But I can tell you that for my part, I know who I trust.
Which one?
Of course, the Americans. We have higher standards, I think, and that's recognized around the world. But I would encourage people to do their own research. Look at the success rates, look at the side effects. Plenty of literature out there about the various options that are available.
Madam Senator, thank you very much for being with me tonight. I gave you a copy of my new book, which is the testimony of the coup. But I want you to read the dedication.
All right. To Yuri, hoping that justice will be done, Sokol.
Will it be done?
I hope so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope so too. It was a pleasure, as usual. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Ishim në këtë intervistë për pak më shumë se një orë me ambasadorin e Shteteve të Bashkuara këtu në Tiranë, zonën Yuri Kim. Ky ishte Real Story dhe e personte. Bashkë jemi sërish të hënë në ora 21. Te atëherë nga Sokol Balla, natë e mirë.
Inspectors have been hired, and so I think that things are going to get moving. But that's not it. As I mentioned to you before, for me in Albania, we have three priorities: democracy, defense, and business. But we're going to have what's called Defender 21 military exercise. And this is going to be an exercise led by the US Army in Europe. And it's going to involve about 26 different countries, 30,000 troops. There are probably going to be about 6,000 who come through Albania in May and in June. And next week, the deputy commander of the US Army in Europe and Africa signed a memorandum of understanding with the Albanian government to see what we can do on building the Skavica hydropower plant.
What we should expect with the new administration?
I think that some things will not change. For example, the attention given to the Balkans will not change. There are agreements that were made by all parties, and it's important for those agreements to be fully implemented. And I look at, for example, the June 5th agreement. I'm talking to Mr. Rama in his capacity as head of the Socialist Party. I'm talking to Mr. Basha as head of the Democratic Party. I'm talking to Ms. Kremade. I'm talking to everybody who is the leader of a political party. It is your responsibility, and I'm talking to you. What their voters deserve. Do voters deserve criminals? Do voters deserve people who are known to be engaged in bad activities?